Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My name is Travis, and if there's one thing life has taught me, it's that people who say money doesn't matter are usually the ones who will do anything to take yours. It's funny how that works. I've always believed in hard work. Nothing was ever handed to me, and I never expected it to be. I built my manufacturing business from the ground up, putting in long hours, making sacrifices, and taking risks to create the life I always wanted. And for a while I had it all: money, success, and a beautiful wife, Frida, who I thought loved me for who I was, not just for what I could provide. Frida and I lived well. We had a beautiful home, luxury cars, designer clothes, everything you'd expect from a couple doing well in life. And I never had a problem with that. I wanted us to enjoy the fruits of my labor. I wanted my wife to be happy and comfortable. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that good times don't last forever. Business isn't always smooth sailing. Sometimes, no matter how smart you are or how much effort you put in, things happen that are completely out of your control. In my case, it was a series of unexpected government policies that hit my industry hard. Costs skyrocketed, production slowed, and suddenly, I wasn't making the kind of money I used to. I knew things were getting bad, but I didn't want to burden Frida with it. I figured I'd fix things on my own, and she'd never have to worry. After all, what could she do about it? Stressing her out wouldn't change the situation. So, I kept it to myself. I worked late nights, tried new strategies, cut back on expenses where I could, but the harder I fought to keep things normal, the worse it seemed to get. And what I didn't realize at the time was that while I was busy trying to save our future, the person I was trying to protect was already slipping away. One morning, I remember sitting at the kitchen table, staring into my coffee, trying to find the right words. I couldn't keep up with the lifestyle we'd gotten used to. I had kept to myself for as long as I could, hoping things would turn around, but they hadn't. So, as Frida scrolled through her phone, I finally said it. I told her we needed to cut back. No more mindless spending, no more shopping sprees, no more fancy dinners just because we felt like it. At least, not until business picked up again. She looked up at me, her fingers frozen over the screen, her expression unreadable at first. Then, without a word, she set her phone down and took a slow sip of her coffee in silence. She didn't argue, but she didn't agree either. She just sat there, staring at the table, before eventually getting up and walking out of the kitchen without another word. I thought maybe she needed time to process it. Maybe she'd come around once she realized I wasn't doing this to punish her. I was doing it so we wouldn't drown. But I was wrong. Over the next few weeks, everything about her changed. She became short-tempered, always finding something to complain about. If she wasn't sighing dramatically over not being able to buy a new dress, she was rolling her eyes whenever I mentioned staying in instead of going out. She started comparing herself to her friends, saying she was the only one who wasn't enjoying life. The only one who wasn't traveling, shopping, or getting gifts from her husband. It didn't matter how many times I explained that this was temporary, that I was doing everything in my power to fix things. She didn't care. All she saw was that she wasn't getting what she wanted, and to her, that was the real problem. Then she started pulling away. Before, we always told each other where we were going, even if it was just a quick trip to the grocery store. But suddenly, she stopped telling me. She would leave the house without a word and come back hours later, barely saying anything when I asked where she'd been. If I pressed, she'd snap at me, accusing me of making a big deal out of nothing. The worst part? The house didn't feel like home anymore. Every time I walked in, I could feel the tension in the air. I found myself hesitating before speaking, weighing my words carefully to avoid setting her off. I had no idea what would trigger another argument or another passive-aggressive remark. And honestly, I was exhausted. One evening, I had just come back from the office, exhausted but relieved to be home. I noticed that Frida was in the kitchen, so I decided to go talk to my wife, even if only for a moment, before heading to the bedroom to change. I had spent the entire afternoon on calls, trying to hold things together. As I stepped into the kitchen, Frida was standing by the counter, stirring something on the stove. The warm scent of whatever she was cooking filled the air. Her phone was on the counter, screen facing up. I leaned against the counter, trying to start a casual conversation. Hey, how was your day? I asked, rubbing the back of my neck. Before she could respond, a message notification flashed on the screen, drawing both our eyes to it. It was from a number I didn't recognize. It was flirty, unmistakably inappropriate. Frida, move fast. She snatched up the phone with a speed that felt unnatural, her fingers swiping across the screen before I could get another look. But I had already seen enough. I kept my voice steady. Who was that? I asked, my eyes locked on hers. She barely looked up. What? She was already typing something, probably deleting messages, clearing whatever she didn't want me to see. The message that just came in, I said. Who was it from? Her face hardened, just slightly, before she let out a small, forced laugh. Oh, that? Just some random spam. Nothing important. I didn't buy it. I don't think she even expected me to. I took a slow breath, keeping my anger in check. Frida, don't lie to me. She sighed dramatically, finally looking up. Travis, you're overreacting. It was just some guy being stupid. I didn't even respond. I refused to let my anger explode. I was already dealing with enough, trying to stop my business from sinking, trying to keep our life together. The last thing I needed was another war inside my own home. So I didn't yell. I didn't throw accusations. I just looked her in the eye and said, "End whatever this is." I'm serious, Frida. She scoffed, rolling her eyes. There's nothing to end. I let out a slow breath, standing up. Then it shouldn't be a problem, should it? I didn't push further. I could have, but I knew where that would lead. Another screaming match, another argument that would fix nothing. And right now, I needed to pick my battles. I knew what my gut was telling me. But I also knew that if I forced the issue now, she'd just bury it deeper. So I let it go, for the moment. My financial situation came to a point I had to make tough decisions. My business was bleeding money, and I had exhausted every other option. I cut down expenses, restructured operations, and even let go of a few employees just to keep things afloat. But it wasn't enough. The only real asset I had that could get me a decent loan without drowning in interest payments was our house. And so, after thinking long and hard about it, I decided to use it as collateral. I sat Frida down, hoping she'd understand. I wasn't expecting her to jump for joy, but I thought she'd at least see the logic in it. The moment the words left my mouth, she couldn't hide her anger. She didn't even let me finish before she exploded. Are you insane? You're going to have us living on the street because of your stupid business, she yelled. I tried to stay calm and explain. The bank would give me a better deal if I used the house as security. It wasn't like we were losing it. This was temporary. As soon as business picked up, I'd clear the loan. But she wasn't hearing any of it. Frida didn't care about interest rates or business recovery plans. She cared about one thing, stability. Or, more accurately, the illusion of stability. The idea that her comfortable life could even be slightly at risk was unacceptable to her. She told me I was reckless, that I wasn't thinking about her. She made it sound like I was gambling our future away just for fun. I don't trust this plan. I don't trust that things will get better, she said, crossing her arms like a stubborn child. It didn't matter how many facts I laid out, how much logic I used. She had made up her mind. In her world, risk was for other people, not her. I won't lie, her reaction hurt. I had spent years building this life for us. I worked long hours, traveled constantly, and sacrificed so much just to make sure we never had to worry about money. And now, the moment things got tough, she was acting like I was deliberately trying to ruin everything. I kept thinking, if the roles were reversed, wouldn't I support her? Wouldn't I trust her to do what's best for us? But I was starting to realize, Frida didn't see it that way. She wasn't in this with me. She was just along for the ride as long as it was smooth. After weeks of arguing and trying to reason with her, I did what I had to do. I took the loan. And that's when everything truly fell apart. The moment Frida found out, our home turned into a war zone. Every conversation became a fight. She wasn't just angry, she was livid. She accused me of betraying her, of making huge decisions without considering her feelings. She slammed doors, threw sarcastic comments my way whenever she could, and made it clear that she had no intention of letting this go. I was exhausted. I couldn't even sit in my own house without feeling like I was walking through a minefield. At first, I thought maybe she was just venting, that she'd calm down eventually. But she didn't. The tension only grew. It got to the point where I dreaded coming home. I would sit in my car for an extra 5, 10, sometimes 15 minutes before walking through the front door, just mentally preparing for whatever argument she was about to start. The worst part? Half the time, I didn't even know what I was supposed to say to make it better. Nothing I did was ever enough. And that's when I started wondering, was this really about the loan? Or was there something else going on? I had packed my bags one morning like I always did before a business trip. Frida barely looked at me as I told her I'd be gone for a week. She just nodded, scrolling through her phone, not even bothering to ask when I'd be back. Something about the way she acted didn't sit right with me, but at this point, I had learned to stop questioning it. Things between us had been tense for weeks, and honestly, I was too exhausted to fight another pointless battle. So I left. The next day, I came home earlier than expected. The house was silent. Usually, even when Frida wasn't in the living room, there would be some sign of life. But this time, there was nothing. I walked into the bedroom, and that's when I saw it. Her side of the closet was empty. The drawers where she kept her jewelry, gone. Even the perfumes she lined up on the dresser were missing. My stomach tightened as I moved through the house, my eyes scanning the space, looking for some sign that this wasn't what it looked like. But every room told me the same story. Frida had packed up and left. I checked the garage, and that's when the final confirmation hit me. The car I bought for her was gone. She hadn't just left. She had taken everything she could with her. I pulled out my phone and dialed her number. It rang. Once, twice, then went to voicemail. I called again. Same thing. This wasn't just a temporary tantrum. She was gone. Hours passed, and then finally, my phone lit up with a notification. It was a text. From Frida. I opened it, half hoping for some kind of explanation, some kind of excuse that would make this all make sense. But instead, I got 7 words that burned themselves into my memory. I'm moving in with someone more successful. Don't bother calling me. I stared at the message for a long time. I didn't call her. I didn't text back. I didn't even get angry. What was the point? The woman I married, the woman I built a life with, had just thrown everything away like it meant nothing. And for what? More money? A better life? She had made her choice, and I wasn't about to beg her to reconsider it. Instead, I took a screenshot of her message and forwarded it to my lawyer. She thought she was walking away to something better. She had no idea she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. You know, back when I first met Frida, I was completely taken by her. She was charming, beautiful, and had this effortless way of making me feel like the luckiest man in the world. But before I married her, my mentor sat me down and gave me some advice that, at the time, I thought was a little extreme. He told me, Travis, when a man is successful, love is easy. But the moment things get tough, that's when you'll see what she's really made of. Protect yourself. He had seen too many men lose everything when their wives decided they weren't interested in struggling. He told me how some women, after years of enjoying luxury, simply walked away when things got hard, taking half of what the man had worked for. That conversation stuck with me. So before Frida and I got married, I made sure we had a serious talk about financial security. I told her straight up, if you have no plans of cheating or leaving, then this shouldn't be a problem. But if you do, you get nothing. No house, no car, not even the designer clothes or jewelry I buy for you. And if you leave me for another man, you'll owe me alimony. She laughed at the time, saying she would never do such a thing. She finally signed the prenuptial agreement, probably assuming it was just another piece of paper that can be contested in court. But I knew better. I wasn't being paranoid. I was being prepared. And that decision would prove to be the best one I ever made. 2 days after she walked out of our home, convinced she was upgrading her life, she was served with legal documents. I can only imagine the look on her face when she realized what she had done. She hadn't just left for a richer man. She had walked straight into financial ruin. She had assumed she could leave with the house, the car, and all the luxury she had gotten used to. But she was wrong. When she got the court papers, My phone started blowing up. Call after call, text after text. Suddenly, she had a lot to say. She apologized over and over, telling me she had made a mistake, swearing she had just been confused and overwhelmed by everything happening. She wanted to talk, but I didn't respond. Not once. I wasn't interested in her explanations, her excuses, or her sudden change of heart. She had made her choice. Now she had to live with it. When she never got a response from me, she thought she would ignore this issue and it would go away, but she had no idea. Months after Frida walked out of our home, believing she had secured a better future with her more successful man, I got some news. Turns out, the guy she ran to wasn't the financial savior she thought he was. In fact, he was nowhere near as wealthy as she had imagined. I wasn't actively checking up on her, but people talk. A friend of mine, who moves in some of the same social circles Frida used to frequent, casually mentioned that she had been complaining about money. A lot. At first, I wasn't surprised. After all, she had gotten used to a certain kind of lifestyle when we were together. But then, the details started rolling in, and I realized just how bad things had gotten for her. Apparently, this successful man she bet everything on wasn't the big shot she assumed. He had a bit of money, sure, but nothing close to what she had envisioned. She thought she was securing a luxury-filled future, but instead, she found herself adjusting to a reality she never planned for. One where she couldn't just swipe a card and get whatever she wanted. And from what I heard, she wasn't handling it well. She was learning firsthand what it meant to depend on someone who wasn't as financially stable as she once believed. Meanwhile, I had been doing what I always do, focusing on rebuilding. The business that had taken a hit was finally starting to recover. It wasn't overnight, and it definitely wasn't easy. But through careful planning, strategic moves, and sheer persistence, I was seeing real progress. Deals were coming back, money was flowing again, and the pressure I had felt for months was finally easing. But Frida's problems weren't just about adjusting to a lower standard of living. There was still the matter of the alimony she owed me. She probably assumed she could get away with ignoring it, thinking I wouldn't bother enforcing the terms of our prenup. Maybe she even believed I'd feel bad for her and just let it go. She was wrong. I wasn't out for revenge, but I also wasn't going to let her walk away from her legal obligations while I had upheld mine. So, I made a simple decision. I instructed my lawyer to move forward with enforcing the unpaid alimony. If she had thought she was struggling before, she was about to learn what real consequences felt like. I used to believe that love was about commitment, about choosing to stand together even when life throws its worst at you. But after everything I've been through, I see now that for some people, love is only as strong as their lifestyle. The moment the luxury disappears, so does their so-called love. Looking back, I don't regret how things turned out. If anything, I'm glad I saw her true colors before I wasted any more time or resources on someone who never really valued me, only what I could provide. Some people will leave thinking they're upgrading, convinced that the grass is greener somewhere else. But what they don't realize is that if they were only there for the money, then the moment that money disappears, so does their place in that new life. Now I want to hear from you. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Would you let her walk away without paying a cent? Or would you make sure she feels the consequences of her actions? For me, I sleep easy knowing she didn't walk away with half of what I worked for. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and share this video. You never know who might need to hear this lesson today.